Srinath. He is serving Calicut Management Association as a secretary for the second time, and we find the meticulous planning of this convention very well. Being the Silver Jubilee year, Calicut Management Association is having at its helm of affairs Mr. Andamani, a vibrant, a known person to the city of Calicut, and it's no wonder that before the tomorrow session is opened, we could close our registration beforehand for the first time in the history of Annual Management Convention. And also, for the first time, it's our privilege and honor to have an association with Indian Institute of Management, Kozhikode, and we are holding the Annual Management Convention in this grand venue for the first time. So, let us listen from the leader of Calicut Management Association. May I request President Engineer Andamani for his presidential address.
Chairman of this meeting, Mr. Ashik, Chief Guest of the Day, Sri T.P. SREENIVASAN, Guest of Honor and Keynote Speaker, Ms. Aruna Sundar Rajan, Ms. Aneesha CHERIYAN, who's on her way, the President of TAI Kerala, who's giving us the special address today, respected past presidents, managing committee members, fellow CMA members, registered delegates, invited guests, valuable participants, and all others. I hope I have covered everybody. Standing before you all, it's a privilege, it's a joy to deliver this presidential address on this Silver Jubilee Annual Management Convention of the Silver Jubilee year, in the presence of this high dignitaries and also with each one of you. And much above all that, in this prestigious Indian Institute of Management, Kozhikode, as mentioned by our past president himself, Mr. Dinesh. We at Calicut Management Association is really honored and excited to see each one of you here on this fine evening. The largest and the highly distinguished group of past presidents who brought it to 25 years have reached here. Gratitude and grateful to each one of you, former past presidents. Next 2 days is going to be an excellent platform to deliberate on the topic, where are we heading in the changed world order? Every day in our life calls for a little better than what you had yesterday or what you were yesterday. Management professionals face new problems and encounter them in their job daily in varying proportion and varying dimensions. The limiting thoughts or the ever-changing thought forms, and almost always the drama of thoughts that is created in our mind keeps us confused how to take a direction or how to go in which direction. Today, the world is changing so quickly in so many areas, and there is so much information available in the public domain. If one does not learn quickly, then one will always be termed as educated unemployed, or educated but living in the past. Lack of access to information is not at all a barrier to learning anymore. Things have changed, world has changed, everything has changed. Today, it calls to work with pride, honesty, integrity, and dedication to your work, and it also equally calls to work with people who have pride, honesty, integrity, and dedication to the establishment. Exchanging thoughts on contemporary developments is at the fingertips and is of utmost importance for each one of us to scale forward. How has the business changed after the pandemic? How do you communicate with your team faster and in the unique way? What development initiatives is needed in the post-pandemic world? How digital is going to be the new paradigm? How workforce is going to change? How commerce is being transformed? These are the focus points that this convention is going to discuss, interact, and debate today and tomorrow. And it is going to be kickstarted by none other than these three vibrant personalities, TPS, Aruna Madam, and Aneesha CHERIYAN. Welcoming each one of you on behalf of Calicut Management Association. It's a pride and honor to receive you together on this occasion. For we people in business or management professionals, tough questions arise, strange situations arise. We need to begin thinking about how to change the way to use technology in all facets of our day-to-day life. For that, we need to get the right information to take the right decisions. And you need maximum information and time to think upon. I would say that true learning is about thinking about each concept, its application, trying variations of the concept what you're having in mind, and to see what is possible. We need to stand for new ideas and not the same old idea what we had yesterday. It's almost another surety that a lot of personal characteristic change is necessary for the success in each field. To make big changes and to run your own establishment in a different way and to create wonders, we management professionals need to have a long-term planning backed by commitment and prudent leadership. I still believe the biggest achievements of each one of us is still ahead of us from tomorrow, is still ahead of us. Today's world requires and demands to admire anyone who has done something new and different, and even the minor talents of each and every individual has to be recognized. Today we have the Thai Kerala president who was Aneesha itself, where Thai fosters entrepreneurship, or it should always be a small thought process which might have changed the lives of not only tens but thousands of people. She will be talking about entrepreneurship and development in today, the present realities. So friends, have a truly wonderful and memorable experience today and tomorrow. On both days, we have great speakers who have made revolutionary changes in their thinking. We have here today with us an international personality, Sri T.P. Srinivasan, whom you all know very well, who was our own representative to United States, and his way of thinking and approach has given India-US relations a new twist, or the respectful way how it has to be. We have Aruna Madam here, who had contributed in a vertical, a revolutionary change in telecom industry in a unique way, and has made great changes in the telecom industry of India. So, to each one of you, I wish to say, do feel proud about being part of this Silver Jubilee Annual Management Convention. Get prepared and be ready for the tomorrow where it lies exciting opportunities for you. Time is limited, so let us not waste time by living it for someone else's life. Let us have our own courage and follow our own heart and intuition. In conclusion, I wish to mention once more that we are extremely delighted to have you three of you here on this fine evening together. And on behalf of each one of us at Calicut Management Association, I express my profuse thanks for accepting our invitation to address this inaugural session of our Silver Jubilee Annual Management Convention. And a huge big thank you to each one of you, dear audience, for your valuable presence. I conclude by saying that CMA is looking forward confidently that three of you will generate more interest as you share your perspectives on the topic, where are we heading in the changed world order? Lots of pleasure. And here I wrap up my presidential address. Thanks to each one of you.
Thank you, President Engineer Anandamani, for all the efforts you have taken the year all along for bringing great personalities, including Shashi Tharoor as Speaker to Calicut Management Association, and also taking all the pains to organize this Silver Jubilee Annual Management Convention. Being a chairman of Annual Management Convention is a huge responsibility, and this year CMA was lucky to have a seasoned, experienced member of Calicut Management Association who have served as Secretary and also as Vice President so many years. We are lucky to have Ashik KP as the Chairman of Silver Jubilee Annual Management Convention. Let us welcome Mr. Chairman Ashik KP with a big round of applause for the presentation of the theme, where are we heading in the changed world order?
Respected President, dignitaries on and of the dais, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me immense pleasure and delight to present the theme of the Annual Management Convention of CMA's Silver Jubilee year. The theme of the convention, as you all know, is where we are heading in the changed world order. Change, complexities, competition, and high expectation of the customers, whether it be citizens, beneficiaries, stakeholders, are the four pillars around which the world is resolving today. The fusion of technologies created by the fourth industrial revolution, the COVID pandemic, inflation, and economic depression has aggravated the situation, which in turn creating a shift in the world order in terms of the disorder of the world. The current situation offers an opportunity to learn new lessons to us as whether we accept the same or reject it. The report of the World Economic Forum says that the era of the fourth industrial revolution may be an era of disruption where 80% of jobs will become obsolete. The fall of petroleum, demand and consumption, the revolution in automobile, the total digitalization of banking sector, agencyfication in public service delivery system, the technological intervention in biotechnology and the life sciences are the tip of the iceberg. A giant tsunami break in the future. The post-COVID scenario has witnessed same by unrest of the world, like Russian fear leading to Ukraine war, American fear leading to the rule of Taliban Afghan, China's fear in the Taiwan crisis, and so on. India, as the world's largest democracy, the world's largest country, maybe the largest in the youth population for the better, the country which totally accepts the digital revolution in all sectors, whether the changed world order can take us to an era of disruption or era of hope is the question we have to address. Whether we need a new management thought for overcoming the situation, lead the world, as individual, maybe business people, media personalities, teachers, professionals, bureaucrats, what's our moral responsibility or what change we should implement our system is a question to be addressed. Thank you very much.
Chairman Ashik for identifying an apt topic and lining up great speakers for today and tomorrow. Before we move on, let me request Abdul Majid sir to read out a brief profile of the chief guest of today.
The former ambassador to United States of America and permanent representative of India at the United Nations, Governor for India at the International Atomic Energy Agency, Mr. T.P. Srinivasan has served in the Indian Foreign Service for 37 years. His previous postings included Deputy Chief of Mission in the Embassy of Kenya, Ambassador to Fiji and 8 other South Pacific island states. He also served in Tokyo, Thimphu, Moscow, New York and Yangon. He rose to the highest peak of his illustrious career in 2001 and retired in 2004. Mr. Srinivasan has nearly 20 years of experience in multilateral diplomacy and represented India at numerous international forums under the United Nations, the Commonwealth and the Non-Aligned Movement, and served and chaired several UN committees. He has also authored a number of books.
Ladies and gentlemen, with great respect and honor, let us invite the chief guest of the day, T.P. Srinivasan, Foreign Ambassador to United States, to kindly deliver his inaugural address.
Thank you very much indeed for that very generous introduction. There are some exaggerations in that, but that we'll forget. This is a dream come true for me, to be able to address the Calicut Management Association in this famous hall of the IIM Kozhikode. I've never done this before. I was invited here many times, particularly when I was the vice chairman of the Kerala State Higher Education Council, but we could not work out a date on which I could come. And I'm here today only because of the determination and perseverance of Mr. Anandamani. I don't know how many calls he made to me, how many times we changed dates, how many times I changed my role, but he was insistent on one thing: you should be here on this particular day and open the session. So I'm very delighted indeed. But I'm very concerned about the topic that we are going to discuss, because I don't have good news for you. I think the Management Association asking this question has a meaning. Whether it was meant so or not, meant like that or not, I have a suspicion that the Management Association or the managers of the world have realized that the diplomats have ruined the world. And you want to take over, I think. That's a good thing to do, because we have made it a mess. If you say, what will be the world order? My answer is, I don't know. Where is the world order? There was a world order, at least in our memory, after the Second World War. A structure was created. United Nations was born. The winners of the war took charge and took over the veto, called the losers of the war the enemies of the world, and we all went and signed up for this organization. 75 years later, UN has become discredited. Not because the others question the founders. The founders themselves destroyed the institution that they built. So the entire architecture of a multilateral world lies in ruins today, without any exaggeration. There have been many occasions when we have lost the faith in the United Nations. The UN says, we are here to rid the future generations of the scourge of war. Have they done that? They promised, we shall beat swords into plowshares. Have they done that? Military expenditure is going higher and higher. 800 wars have been fought since the United Nations was established. And that is why when Ban Ki-moon was asked, what is the greatest achievement of the UN? He did not say we prevented the Third World War. That's what the UN says. There was no Third World War, we are here, so it must be because of that that the Third World War was not fought. But he said, the United Nations has immunized the world's children against infectious diseases. Of course, it was not the mission of the United Nations, but that's what we ended up. And it was great, because if they were not immunized, millions of children would have died of infectious diseases. But even that reputation UN lost when COVID-19 came. Can you believe that the biggest threat to the existential threat to humanity, the Security Council could not even meet? We blame the permanent members. They are not allowing anything to happen in the UN. Good. But can you imagine at this occasion, the Security Council could not even meet because there was suspicion that this COVID-19 came from China. And as it happened that month, China was the president of the Security Council. They refused to call a meeting. That was the rock bottom that the United Nations reached. There have been other pandemics, there have been other epidemics. Ebola, HIV, AIDS. The UN worked, it was not left to the WHO. Security Council met and created the necessary complementarities to produce vaccines, to help out people. But what did you see in 2019? So, is there any chance for the United Nations to now survive? Can it be reformed? Can it be changed into something else? We don't know. So the very architecture which we, the big leaders of the world, the great statesmen created, when President Trump stood up and said, I don't need you, you don't need me, we all do what we like, and this United Nations is just a club. It's being said by the leader of the world, the leader of United States. And he demonstrated it. And so what are we doing? You're looking for a new organization, a new structure. So the old order is gone and the new order is not born. So what we have to discuss is not what will happen in the future or what is with the new world. We don't see the new world. There's nothing to look at. They say old order changeth, yielding place to the new, lest one good custom should corrupt the world. World has to change. But that change has to be for something else. So the world is in the middle of two world orders. One we have seen, it has failed, and one we don't even see. So a very wise man was asked recently, can you talk about the state of the world in one word? A great philosopher. He said, yes, good. You cannot dispute that, can you? Then he was asked, how would you describe it in two words? He said, not good. So the choice is between good and not good. Because we don't know what is the new world order is like. And when were we tested for this? Now we look back at the old world order, thinking how beautiful it was. There were these two superpowers balancing each other, cancelling each other. Here is the lovely non-aligned movement, friendly with everybody, getting the best from both sides. It was predictable. There was no unexpected. So if the Americans want to do something, Soviets would stop them, and it stops So Soviet will apply the veto. Soviet vetoes served India 5 times. I don't know if you know it. There are 5 occasions when India would have been condemned by the United Nations Security Council had it not been for Soviet veto. I don't have to mention the occasions. So there was certain kind of balance in that sense. The only time UN fought a war was the first Gulf War. The second Gulf War was not a United Nations war. So the unanimity of the permanent members was absolutely essential for the UN to do anything other than, of course, immunizing the children of the world. So today, where do we go? And you can identify the crises that brought us to this situation. I call it the dreadful decades. That is 2001 to 2021. Just turn back and see. The biggest crisis after the Second World War was 9/11. We have almost forgotten it, haven't we? But what did it do? It destroyed the entire security architecture of the world. MAD, you know MAD what it is, mutually assured destruction. That is what kept us going. The Americans and the Soviets would sit together and reduce. They'll say, why should we destroy the world 20 times? You destroy 10 times, I'll destroy 10 times, so we'll reduce expenditure. That was the arms limitation talks. They were not talking about disarmament. They were not talking about destroying all nuclear weapons. And so we, the non-aligned world as it was, we were saying, don't fight, don't do that, we don't want blocks. But now when the blocks disappeared, aren't we nostalgic about that world? What is the guarantee that you will get a Russian veto for something that we want to do? There's no guarantee. So, the first was 9/11, which destroyed the security structure because the biggest nuclear power in the world was made to bend on its knees by 10 people who did not even have a gun. You remember that? They had only forks and knives picked up from the aircraft. And the United States lost the world. It has not recovered from it. You will see it if you go to an American airport. They will strip you to find out whether you are a terrorist. Even if you are not, you will be accused of that because the United States has lost its confidence. So where is the balance? At that time, I remember we were making speeches about this has changed the world, but we forgot about it. We learned some lessons. United States got bogged down in Afghanistan for 20 years and came back defeated. So the old world order, this could not have happened. Then came 2008. I don't know much of economics, so I can't tell you what happened in 2008. Arun can tell us. But I know that an average American citizen lost 40% of his income, right? Because of the economic crisis. And we have forgotten that also. But all this made such an impact on humanity. And then comes the pandemic. Nobody expected it. President Obama said, we don't have to worry because no disease will break out in the United States because we have the technology, we have the expertise. But said, be careful, it may happen somewhere else. And some aircraft may bring that disease to the United States in 4 to 5 hours. But what happened? They were not afraid of Air India bringing it to New York, but we were very concerned that an American aircraft will land in Trivandrum and bring the disease. Isn't it a role reversal? Why did that happen? Because there was no structure. The vaccine would have been invented in 5 months if the whole world had concentrated. If China was not suspected of having spread it. Because China and the United States worked together in that laboratory. But there is no system. Countries were running helter-skelter. European Union, the best, most elaborate regional organization in the world. Did they help each other? Italians were dying. Scandinavians were dying. And there was no European Union to take care of that. We made a desperate attempt to revive SAARC. What happened? Pakistan came and spoke about Kashmir. You know, the joke about Pakistan is you ask them to say anything about anything. Please make a speech on elephant. We'll say elephant and Kashmir. So they came and talked about pandemic and Kashmir. G20 met. What happened? Nothing. G7 met. What happened? So another blow to the order that we knew. And the latest, the Russia-Ukraine war. At the beginning of this year, the 5 permanent members, the 5 recognized nuclear weapon states, issued a declaration to console the world. They said, a nuclear war cannot be won and should never be fought. The 5 permanent members are telling you. Did you all sleep peacefully after that? Did you trust them? And within 2 months of that declaration, one permanent member is saying, if I don't get my Russian empire back, and if you block me, I have something in my hands. Where is the balance? Where is the responsibility of the great powers? Where is the, where is MAD? The mutual assured destruction is not there. And the United States thought they will fight this war through sanctions. Where have they reached? Have the sanctions been implemented? President Biden went to the Gulf rather late in the day, requesting Saudi Arabia and others to increase production of oil so that the prices can be kept. What was he told? He said, we are talking to the Russians. Saudi Arabia telling Americans that we are talking to the Russians and the Chinese. And the biggest blow of the pandemic was the behavior of China. We knew Chinese were hostile to us. But did you expect them to come and attack us in the middle of a pandemic? What was the hurry? But they saw an opportunity to shorten the fight with the United States and take over. Everybody knows China will overtake United States in 15 years. But Xi Jinping thought, why 15 years? Here is the opportunity. The Americans are sinking. They are not on top of the world. So they started flexing their muscles in Ladakh, in Hong Kong, in Taiwan, in the South China Sea, everywhere. So where is the balance again? And then Russians find an excellent opportunity. Putin goes to Beijing and signs an agreement, a treaty, which is stronger than the Warsaw Pact and the NATO agreement. Because in Warsaw Pact and NATO agreement, there are conditionalities. Here they are saying that we are entering into an agreement of cooperation without any inhibition of any kind. And Russia is a friend of ours, right? Where will we look at? If tomorrow there is an aggression against India, where are we going to look at? Of course, Russians never supported us. In '62, they said one is a brother and the other is a friend. You know who is brother and who is a friend. In 2020, what did they do? They allowed some kind of a meetings to take place in Moscow between India and China. But now they are openly committed to support China if they have a conflict with India. They are openly committed to help China if it invades Taiwan. One China policy, yes, but we will protect Taiwan. Ukraine, China is supporting Ukraine and the war in Ukraine. So what we see today is a situation where all rules have been changed or destroyed. Look at our agreements with China, starting from Panchsheel to the 1993 agreement, when we decided that there shall be peace and tranquility on the border. Each one they have violated. Do we have a structure to deal with China anymore? No. They said those agreements don't exist. Pakistan will say that there is no Simla agreement. Never heard of it. So I can go on and on, but I don't want to because my train will leave. So what I'm saying is that we are in the center of two world orders. And who is trying to shape it? Everybody is trying. Nobody is happy with his or her situation in the world today. US is not happy, Russia is of course not happy, China is not happy. Is India happy? So my friend Shivashankar Menon wrote in Foreign Policy, everybody has become a revisionist. Because the revisionist has a connotation. But without that connotation, what he meant was everybody wants to change his life. Nobody is happy with what you have. And what is everybody is trying? To shape the world according to your own imagination. What does India want? India wants a multipolar world. Fair enough. But who will be with you if you create a pole for yourself? There was this amusing moment when Talbot and Jaswant Singh were talking. You must have heard about it. After our nuclear test. 2 years they were talking in 20 countries. And finally they came to an agreement that India will be a responsible, technologically advanced country. That's all. But at one point, when we were having a tea break, Mr. Talbot asked Mr. Jaswant Singh, Jaswant, suppose India goes to war tomorrow, for whatever reason, legitimate reason. Which countries in the world will automatically support you? Jaswant Singh's teacup almost fell. What will he say? And Talbot made it worse by saying, but don't tell me Bhutan and Mauritius. So we are ready for a multipolar world. So my feeling, I'll conclude with that the new world will not be ideological, but there will be a Cold War, there will be a divide between democrats and autocrats. That is the divide we are going to see. They already told us that India is only 50% democratic. You have heard that, right? It was 70% at one time, now they have reduced to 50%. But the conflict of tomorrow is not between communism and capitalism. There will be only two groups of people, two groups of countries, the democrats on one side and the autocrats on the other. You know the lineup very clearly. So what does it leave us with? We had good relations with Russia. Can we expect that to continue? United States is not too happy with us because the Democrats think that we are violating human rights in India. So as I wrote the other day in the Hindu, this is not for the time for us to create multilateral organizations. Nobody is ready. Everyone is waiting. Everybody is willing to swing one way or the other. But they will not commit themselves to any arrangement at this time. Everybody is waiting, and that is what's happening in the world. So some people call it soft balancing. Some people say this is the old Malayalam saying, Kayala portha thenga. Everybody can fall either side. So my own prediction is, for whatever it is worth, you can't be on the side of the autocrats, can we? So what will happen is the autocrats will push you into the arms of the Americans. We have no choice. Then you might as well start dealing with Americans from now on. So this is the scenario as I see it. Not only me, from your reading you must have also understood that. So India is in a very deep crisis because we need the world, and we need the world on our own terms, and the world is not ready for it. So this is the time for all of us to work bilaterally with each country. Make your deals so that when finally the new Cold War arises, you will be on the right side. But where is the hope? Because I don't want to end this in a note of defeat or pessimism. There is a hope in the youth of the world, because they are not prejudiced by various prejudices that we have. Ask a young person, is he bothered whether his classmate is a Muslim or a Hindu? Do they have the kind of prejudices that we have? So the only hope that we have is a new generation without prejudices will come, and thus we build a new India, and then we'll be ready for the world. I had a fascinating conversation with Nobel laureate Mohammad El-Baradei. You know what he said? I'm very fortunate to have this young generation. And the example he gave was very amusing. He has 2 grandchildren, girls, and they're walking in the Vienna Park. And the grandfather was kind of looking after the elder sister better. So this young girl stood on a stone in that park and addressing and said, how come my grandfather is looking after my sister better than I do, when he does to me? He says there is hope here. For a 12-year-old girl to say that I need the attention from my grandfather as much as my sister has. He said, then I felt that my life has been useful. He got the Nobel Prize for Peace. But this he thought was a better assurance for him than the Nobel Prize for Peace he got. So have faith in our younger generation. They'll find a solution. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. The silence we felt in the hall was not just in the hall. It was really deep silence we felt within. In 2 words and 2 sentences, you triggered the deepest of concerns in all of us. Good and not good. Old order is gone. New order is not born. Thank you, Engineer Anandamani, for your persistence, because Silver Jubilee had the apt person to have the inaugural address. Let us give a big round of applause to former Ambassador T.P. Srinivasan. Thank you, sir, for that enlightening, crisp, content-rich address. We move on. May I request Abdul Majid to introduce the guest of honor of the day.
Ms. Aruna Sundar Rajan is a former officer of the Indian Administrative Service, Kerala, KEYNOTE. She served as the Secretary to the Government of India in the Ministries of Steel, IT and Telecom, and retired as Chairperson of the Digital Communications Commission in 2019. During her tenure, Ms. Rajan played a pioneering role in steering various important tech policies and initiatives across the domains of telecom and hardware manufacturing, e-governance, digital payments, data protection, cybersecurity and tech startups. Post her retirement, Ms. Rajan serves on the boards of leading companies including Larsen & Toubro, Infotech, Delivery and Paradise, besides India's National Bank of Infra Financing and Development, Cochin Airport and a neo-banking startup. She continues to be an active member of various tech mentoring and angel financing initiatives, besides being on the advisory board of the US-India Strategic Partnership Forum and the Arthur Global Initiative.
With great respect and honor, let us welcome the guest of honor of the day, Aruna Sundar Rajan. Kindly, madam, we are eager to listen from you.
President of the Calicut CMA, Mr. Anandamani, Chairman, Mr. Ashik, Chief Guest of the Day, Shri T.P. Srinivasan Sir, Ms. Aneesha CHERIYAN, President TI, Office Bearers of CMA and the All India Management Association, distinguished guests, speakers, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me great pleasure to be here with all of you this evening. And just as the anchor mentioned, I must give thanks to the persistence of Mr. Mani, who without his, sort of facilitation and constant making sure that we are here, I would have perhaps missed what would have been a truly remarkable evening, because I had the privilege of listening to Mr. T.P. Srinivasan in person. All of us know that on this topic, you really couldn't have got a better chief guest as a speaker. He's not only one of the most eminent diplomats that we have around, but his voice is also one, his voice, his insights, his perspectives are something that all of us look forward to eagerly. And while I have been fortunate to hear him virtually, I'm delighted that I had the privilege of actually being able to listen to him. I must also thank Dr. Reena, the energetic Vice President, and one could make out straight away that Calicut is certainly not short of entrepreneurs. Calicut has contributed some great entrepreneurs and managers, and certainly that was very evident in the very first few minutes of conversation with her. I must also add that it's actually a triple pleasure to be here in Calicut. Many of you, I have actually had the good fortune to see the IIM Calicut way before many others have, because along with Amitabh Kant, I was fortunate enough to actually come and select the site. We saw the site and fell in love with it and decided that this is where Kerala's premier institute of management must be. And I think since then, the institute really has not looked back. The second reason why I feel exceptionally privileged is that Mr. Mani has put together a great array of speakers, and I'm hoping to be able to listen to many of them on this very, very topical subject that Mr. Ashik has chosen. So all kudos to Mr. Ashik for choosing something that is so resonant in today's context. Long-term administrators develop very quickly an admiration for entrepreneurs and managers, because they seem to solve problems that administrators often never manage to solve. And if there is one thing that is really striking about India's economic transformation and journey since 1991, it is that its entrepreneurs and the private sector managers have really been at the forefront and have shown that, you know, many cynics notwithstanding, India could achieve some remarkable feats. And that is why today, India is not merely following good practices. In many areas, India is actually setting next practice. This is something that many of us in the pre-91 generation, you know, really would not have expected. But as Mr. T.P. Srinivasan said again, the new generation, the youth, the aspirational youth that we are seeing and the kind of creativity and innovation that they have unleashed, I think that is really the hope, not just for India, but because India is such a large player globally for the world as well. Obviously on this subject, you know, no one can better the perspective that Mr. T.P. Srinivasan, our chief guest, gave today. So I won't even attempt that. Luckily for me, the brief that was given to me was to speak about, you know, something else with which I am a little more familiar, and that is what the changing digital paradigm and where is India heading in the changed digital paradigm. Mr. Srinivasan said here that, you know, the shape of the future is not visible because we are in this transitory phase when one order has ended and a new order is emerging, but we don't know exactly what shape it will take. Although he gave us, you know, enough for us to sense that it's not going to be all that positive. You know, there are some warning signs ahead. But he also ended on a moment of hope. But one thing is undeniable. Even if we cannot foretell what will be the shape of the world in the future, we know that there is one force that is shaping the world even as we speak very definitively. There is no ambiguity whatsoever in anybody's mind that technology is here to stay and that technology is not only transforming everything that we see, but is going to further transform everything that we see. And so digital technology, and now digital technology is such a vast array of technologies. That's why it's called, you know, a platform technology. It's not just one technology. It's literally, you know, hundreds of technologies rolled into one, ranging from AI to the, you know, Web 3.0, the new metaverse, the virtual reality, augmented reality, all kinds of things, you know, blockchain, crypto, all of this that's happening. And we know that this is going to change the world like never before, because the pace of change is accelerating. And thanks to COVID, we know that digital technologies have really, even the most ardent Luddites or people who said that technology can be kept at bay now know that technology is an unstoppable force. But clearly, this technology is going to throw up winners and losers. And where is India going to be positioned in this technological race? Because as we speak, we know that every country is in a race to adopt digital technologies or to digitize or digitalize, whatever you may call it, to transform their ways of governance, their systems, their processes, their economies, their businesses, their societies. Every country is in that race, and no country can afford to stay away from that race. Now, fortunately for us, the journey that really began with the Y2K problem, all of you, or many of you would know about the Y2K problem. Maybe if there are any millennials here, they may not know. But the Y2K problem, which came as a huge challenge technologically to the world, was one that India successfully flipped. And that really started us on our journey. So I'm going to speak about, the emerging digital paradigm, not so much about the emerging global digital paradigm, but about the emerging digital paradigm in India, how it's affecting us. A lot of the things that Mr. Srinivasan spoke about are huge forces that are shaping the world as we speak, but they are not forces that are perhaps immediately transforming our lives. They are certainly going to be momentous, but not, I think, our engagement with them will not be as immediate as technology. And therefore, technology is visibly transforming everything around us. He spoke about the Nobel Peace Laureate and his grandchild. Today, every grandchild, every child is, they're born into a world of technology, and all of them think differently from many of us who belong to a slightly different age. And all of you would have personally experienced it. This is not something that I have to tell you. There's nothing abstract about it. So, since technology is going to be one of the pivotal forces shaping the world and India, I think it's worthwhile spending a few minutes on saying, what is the journey we have undertaken? Where are we now? What is there in the future for us? And how can India play this digital game in this emerging technological race so that we emerge on the side of the winners and not the losers? Fortunately, India is already in a sweet spot. Technologically, India is already a power to contend with. In 2001, when the Y2K problem came, India had just started its IT journey, and it exported roughly about 6 billion worth of software. Within 2 years, it had doubled it to 12 billion, and within another 2 years, it had doubled it to 24 billion. Today, I don't know how many of you would know this. Of course, you know that India is a major software exporter, but many of you may not know that today, India's exports of IT are more than Saudi Arabia's export of oil. That is the kind of magnitude that this sector holds for us. So this is the software sector alone is about 225 billion worth of revenue. We exported about 120 billion worth of software, and another 90 billion came in from software remittances of workers who were employed abroad. So for us, IT ended up solving two major issues which were really looming large in India of the 2000s. The first issue was of foreign exchange. You know that India, in fact, what started India on its journey of liberalization in 91 was the huge forex crisis that happened. But by the mid-2000s, already India had started exporting software, and by 2010, and certainly now, India's foreign exchange position is extremely comfortable because of its service exports, largely IT exports. The second major problem that IT solved for India is educated unemployment. Before that, all of you have seen, and in Kerala, this is a very familiar theme. Every second Malayalam movie, its theme was educated unemployment. And while it made for very good movies, if a little sad, it certainly was not a happy story for many families. But if you look post-2000, the IT software sector alone has created nearly 45 lakh very high quality jobs directly. And if you take the number of jobs that it has created indirectly, it's certainly much larger. And that has been one of the biggest changes that we saw post the IT revolution that happened. Now, we also need to see that IT, in the last 7-8 years particularly, after this government came, because of the huge emphasis and focus on IT, we have seen that it has transformed 3 or 4 major sectors. The first one was in IT infrastructure. And you all know about the mobile and telecom revolution. The mobile and telecom revolution, actually, the seeds were laid by 2003, 2004. But it came into full force only post 2008. And then after 2014, it acquired further momentum. And today, we have about 750 million people who have access to the internet. That is why, whether it's a Facebook, it's a Google, we know that some of the largest communities on any of these platforms are Indians. And that's what makes India such an attractive market for many of these big tech platforms. So internet penetration really went up, and it is now expected to go up to 1 billion by 2026. You already know that Aadhaar, every Indian has a digital identity. We have 1.26 people who have the digital identity, Aadhaar. Again, if you look at the number of people who have bank accounts, and this is something that the younger generation may not relate to, but I certainly relate to, because I remember while I was a civil servant serving in Kerala, one of the things we used to often be asked to do is countersign letters for people who would come and say, please, I want to get a bank account. So if you are an IAS officer and if you sign, maybe a 7-year wait will come down to a 3-year wait. So just like you waited for a gas connection, you waited for a telephone connection for 7 years, you also waited for a bank connection for 5 to 7 years. Now, you are able to open a bank account within literally 2 minutes. And we all know that this is happening because it's so pervasive. Again, digital payments. I still remember when I was Secretary IT, and the Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, was having a discussion after demonetization because the government wanted to incentivize digital payments. And he said, what is the target that we can set for digital payments for India next year? And so somebody said a few million, 100 million, etc. And then he turned to me, and I really don't know what came into my head, but I just said 10 billion. And I think it was more of a spur of the moment response rather than a well-considered response. And he said, 10 billion, why do you say 10 billion? I said, well, there are 1 billion Indians, and at least if each of them makes one transaction a month, you will get about 10, 12 billion, sir, so I hope this should be reasonable. We have now reached a stage where every month we have almost 7 billion worth of transactions on financial payments. So that's the kind of pace of change that has happened. So I was telling you, the first was India's digital journey is I think worth noting because of the following reasons. First, it democratized access and communication. We already spoke about how 1 billion people have access. Now 750 million people have access to the internet. It will go up to 1 billion. The second thing is governance as we know it has changed. The presenceless, faceless, cashless kind of interface is now possible. This was a big problem because, unfortunately, even though I come from the civil service, I have to admit that there was huge rent seeking at various levels. And so whenever you had an intermediary, it meant that the citizen was at the short end of the stick. But today, whether it is your GST, whether it is the direct benefits transfer, which again is the largest program of its kind in the world, whether you have the FASTag as you drive into the city, or whether it is your income tax, all of this is now happening without intermediation. And it's certainly contributing to the ease of doing business and ease of doing living. This is something that nobody can deny. Next, I think the biggest area where digital has made a difference is that it has made possible a service revolution. I mean, if we look at Kerala, certainly tourism, but if you look at the edtech industry, if you look at fintech, if you look at e-commerce, across the board, across all services, we are seeing that there's huge growth. See, in a country like India, you need scale. It is not, the model that India had until a few years ago was that we serviced 100 million of the top paying customers, or maybe that moved up to 200 million. But the bottom 1 billion really did not, or we could not find ways by which this bottom 1 billion could be effectively serviced, educated, their health needs met, so that the difference between 100 billion powering a country and the difference between 700 or 800 billion powering a country is yet before us. So thanks to digital, we were able to do all these things at scale. And that is what is really expected to be the growth engine for India, the digital dividend, because it's going to be on scale. And of course, the other big fallout of the digital revolution is that, an aspirational India was unleashed. Nobody could have imagined that India would have more than 102 unicorns as we speak, that we are creating 2 unicorns every month. Nobody could have expected that India's startup ecosystem would be the 3rd largest in the world. And therefore, why this is important is because it's not the big tech platforms that are going to solve all our problems. Certainly big platforms can enable several kinds of interaction and commerce. But if we want to find solutions to local problems, and if we want to have our local youth getting empowered and getting employed and earning from that, then it is only through the expansion of the startup ecosystem where anyone with capability and creativity and an engagement with local communities can actually come up with solutions. I'm not saying that everybody can become a startup and that everybody can, find solutions. But the point is, I think we often underestimate the kind of mindset change that startups have brought about in India. If we are seeing empowered and confident and aspirational youth all around us, and I don't think anybody in the world can deny that the levels of energy, the levels of aspiration that we see around us are markedly different from what was there earlier. And it is, I think, this energy and this aspirational generation is what is actually going to power the new India growth story. And again, this ties in with what Mr. Srinivasan said, because that really is the big hope, that they will lead the way to a new world order. Now, when I said all this, one thing we must make a note is that if you broadly divide the world into different models, he spoke about the autocratic model and the democratic model. Digitally, if you look at the models of development, you will see the US model of digital development is that the Silicon Valley startups, some of them became huge platforms, and now you have big tech ruling the digital world. If you look at China, it's a little different because the Chinese government handpicked companies, so whether it's an Alibaba or whoever, they handpicked companies and they became the big giants. Now, India has consciously adopted a digital model that is very different. In India, what the government decided was that the government will enable public-private digital platforms. And these public-private digital platforms will enable millions of small agents to interact. So if you look at the UPI, if you look at the India stack, if you look at the way the health stack is being constructed, if you look at the account aggregators framework, if you look at the open network for digital commerce, by the way, these are all new initiatives that are still in the anvil. And each one of them is likely to have a huge transformational impact. We saw how UPI came and the kind of impact it had. we saw how Aadhaar came and the kind of impact it had. We saw the India stack and we saw the kind of impact it had. Now imagine when you have the health stack, now when you have the open network for digital commerce, the account aggregation. See, for example, if I were to take just the account aggregators framework, what this is expected to do is that it will enable any individual to securely share his or her financial data which is residing, let's say, in one bank or an insurance company or in a cooperative with any other regulated entity within this sphere. Now, put like that, this may sound unexciting. But what this is expected to do is that every single individual then becomes credit worthy. And based on the credit history, they can then start accessing credit. So it is going to spark a huge credit revolution in India. So now what all these together, when all these powerful public digital platforms, so that's the point I was making, these are not owned by big tech. In India, whether it's the GST platform or the ONDC platform or the UPI, these have all been facilitated by the government on a public-private partnership. And therefore, India's digital journey is likely to be far more inclusive, far less costly, and far more enabling of small entrepreneurs and agents than big tech, which is the US model. Okay, now that I have said all this, I think it's important for me to say that, what does the future look like? And when I say what does the future look like, I would like to speak about two things. I am not speaking from a geopolitical perspective, because that, I think, was already masterfully summed up by Mr. T.P. Srinivasan. I am trying to take a look at, what is the emerging economic order and where might India possibly fit in and where will digital fit into that. Now, interestingly, we have already seen that, one growth engine of the world, which is the US, I mean, they've technically gone into recession now, most of you must be following. That engine has slowly been running out of a bit of steam over the past many years. And it was replaced by China, which was really the world's growth engine for almost 20, 25, 30 years. But now we are seeing that China is slowing down dramatically. Nobody would have expected that post-COVID, China would have the kind of problems that it has. It's having demonstrations on the streets, its real estate sector is, gone into huge crisis. And because of the zero tolerance policy of COVID, their growth rates are much, much lower than what anybody would have estimated. But more importantly, a lot of global analysts have started pointing out that China, in a sense, may be headed for irreversible decline and slowdown. Because while it is still technologically trying to play catch up with the US, its demography, unfortunately, is hugely against China's continuing to be an engine of growth. China, it has been pointed out, because of its disastrous one-child policy, is going to become the country with the greatest aged population. Obviously, because China is such a large country. It will have achieved an aged population profile in the shortest span of time in history. And what that will do to China is something that nobody is really able to forecast. So China is not going to implode, although many people would also like to see that. But while China may not implode, China's long-term prospects to continue to be the growth engine of the world are very, very, very significantly in doubt. And that is where India is just getting into its sweetest spot. Because in the world, there is no country which has such a hugely positive demographics in its favor. India for the next 20, 30 years is likely to have favorable demographics. That means the working age population will outstrip the population that is too young and too old. And therefore, this, what I call the triple D convergence, that is the digital dividend, the democratic dividend, and the demographic dividend. If these three can really converge in the manner in which, India, in the manner in which it can, if India plays its cards right, then I think India could well be the growth engine for the whole world. And this is something that is not just of academic interest, but I think it's going to make a huge difference to the lives of the people that we see around us. You know, it's not that India has done badly in the last 15 years, but India should do so much better. It's not that we don't have still the largest, we're still very low on many, many global indicators, including poverty. We have millions of people unemployed or underemployed, earning very little wages. So it's not that we don't have problems. If, as we said, this sweet spot can be leveraged, then I think we have a real hope that notwithstanding that maybe 100 million people moved out of poverty in India, we need to have 500 million people moving up the value chain. And that's the kind of hope that the unfolding digital revolution combined with the demographic that we spoke about. And very key to all this is democracy. Not just for the geostrategic reason that the world is getting divided into the autocrats and the democrats, but because it has been well proven that democracies, the discussion, the debate, the creativity, the inclusivity that democracy fosters, really is what takes a country to the highest level. Now, some people can ask, well, China did very well without democracy. But if, as seems to be the case, that after 30 years China is facing real problems, then I don't think that is the kind of model we want to follow. So let us hope that in India we will be able to see the fruits of this playing out. I also want to mention one thing. Now, does this mean that everything is hunky-dory for India and that we are in a sweet spot and that everything will happen automatically? I don't think it would be fair to say, to leave you with the impression that everything is perfect. There are going to be big challenges. Digital has its digital dystopian side, and we are seeing some hints of that already. The social media, the manner in which social media is, affecting society, affecting the minds of the very young, affecting socialization across broad sectors of society. All these are clear challenges that we will have to face. How do we regulate so that big tech is reined in? But at the same time, how do we regulate in such a manner that there's a level playing field? How do we ensure that there's competition? We don't want big tech from US being replaced by big tech from India. So we are seeing that happen as well. So how are we going to manage that? Then how are we going to manage the new technologies of 5G, AI, Web 3.0, Industry 4.0? All of this will require every single person to do his or her bit. This is not something that can be decided by a small set of people. Therefore, it has relevance, I think, for the larger community of managers, for entrepreneurs, all of us. And then, again, this whole debate about supply chains, our dependence for chips, semiconductor chips. This, again, fortunately for us, India was a hardware power about 30, 40 years ago. We still have, we have very good design capabilities. And now that people are thinking about the China +1 strategy, already big manufacturers are moving into India. Many of you would have seen the news that the latest Apple iPhone 14, when China manufactures it, India will also be manufacturing the iPhone 14. So in a sense, this is technology catch up for India. So if we get the infrastructure play right, if we get the manufacturing play right, and if we get the 3 Ds together, then it is possible that India can offer a lot of hope to the world and certainly change the lives of hundreds of millions. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam. We are thankful that you also voted in favor of bringing IIM to Calicut. In a way, this is a thanksgiving by CMA by having you here in the same hall of IIM, which you probably visualized years before. Of course, you just reminded it is not just best practice. India is setting next practice. And most of the statistics and figures you mentioned really giving us a positive hope. We are really thankful. With a big round of applause, thanks to Madam for being with us as our keynote speaker. Before we move on, our chief guest has to leave. So it's an honor for CMA to have you here. May I request to kindly request to receive a token of appreciation from Calicut Management Association. I am told that the President on the Silver Jubilee year is magnanimous even to have 25 grams of silver coin as a chief guest presentation. So thank you, SREENIVASAN sir, for being with us. And it was an enlightening talk which definitely set the tone for the entire convention. As chief guest is leaving, thank you, sir, for being with us. We move on. I request Abdul Majid to introduce the next speaker.
Thank you. Ms. Anisha CHERIYAN is the founder and managing director of Chemanur Academy Systems Private Limited. The Academy's main service verticals are learning and developmental programs and overseas recruitments in healthcare, schools, finance sectors, etc. The Academy, under her leadership, has emerged as the largest recruiter to the majority of the money exchange houses in the GCC. Mrs. Anisha is passionate about designing, coaching, facilitating entrepreneurial productivity leadership workshops and managerial teams, startups, and women and entrepreneurs. Her stellar managerial expertise was exploited by many renowned concerns where she held positions such as advisor to Women Entrepreneurs Network. She is founding member of Rising Our Voices Foundation, member of CII Kerala State Council. Mrs. Anisha is currently leading the TIE Kerala as its president, the first woman to hold this position.
With great honor, we invite the president of TIE Kerala to address the audience.
Good evening to you all. First, anyway, Mr. Anand Mani is not here, but first, anyway, let me thank Mr. Anand Mani, President of Calicut Management Association, Mr. Srinath, Secretary, Calicut Management Association, Mr. Ashik KP, Chairman, AMC. It was really an eye-opener to listen to Mr. TP Srinivasan. It was also a little scary when he spoke about the world order and the world disorder. And it was quite interesting to listen to Mrs. Aruna because she actually spoke and we all got relieved, I think, when we heard about the digital transformation that is happening in India. Thank you, Aruna, for giving us a deep understanding of the future of digital tech and digital paradigm in India. It is amazing listening to India's digital journey, Very interesting predictions too. And I have to say, I was really relieved listening to Aruna after listening to Mr. T.P. Srinivasan. The topic that I have is, again, on entrepreneurship and management, present realities. Now, in the present scenario, entrepreneurship is not an option, it is a mandatory requirement. Now, let's first understand who is an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur is a problem solver, someone who identifies a real problem and then goes on to creating a product or a service to solve that problem and creates a viable venture to sustain himself and his family. So we require entrepreneurs to solve world problems. Now let's go and understand what is an entrepreneurial mindset. An entrepreneurial mindset is a resilient problem-solving mindset that is tuned into opportunities. And I consider it my mission to inculcate this mindset to youngsters, organization, teams, and especially to women, to financially empower them so that they have the capacity to make decisions that impact their personal lives. So over 18 years, I've had the experience of building, crashing, rebuilding my training and recruiting company at least 5 times. So in the process, I figured out the how and why you need an entrepreneurial mindset, and more importantly, the action points required to impart this mindset to you. So what are we talking about here? It's all very simple terminologies. One is self-confidence, which you need for anything and everything. A resilient mindset to face challenges. Individual and team productivity, which is focused on long-term sustainable effectiveness, not efficiency. Efficiency is about doing maximum things within a given period of time. Effectiveness is doing something which contributes to your goal or to your mission. It's not about doing more things, it's about doing less. But whatever you do, it contributes to your goal or to your mission. Learning curiosity, that is continuous learning and updating yourself all the time. Selling skills to create value, relationship skills, which we all know is the foundation of any business. And innovation culture. Now, what is this innovation culture? It's coming up with a new method or process every single time, every single day, because the world around us is so dynamic, it's changing all the time. We have so many disruptions happening simultaneously. So all of this should be aligned to a deeper purpose, where we ask ourselves this question, why? Even the existing processes and systems in our companies, we need to ask ourselves, do we really need to do this? We need to ask that question of why and keep on changing. And we need to be dynamic. So this purpose, this larger purpose is very important. So even as entrepreneurs, why is this larger purpose important? How many of us are excited to get up in the morning and go to work? So this excitement will come in only if there is a deep purpose, a much larger purpose that will impact society in a positive manner. Now I want to touch a little bit on how do we inculcate this entrepreneurial mindset in children. So I'm going to touch upon how to inculcate this mindset in children. Then I'm going to talk about how do we inculcate this mindset in women, and I'll explain to you why. So first, let's understand that our schools don't have entrepreneurship as a mandatory subject. We are all aware that it is absolutely required, and especially after the pandemic, we have understood its relevance. We need to have entrepreneurship as a mandatory subject in our schools, just to teach children critical thinking skills, problem-solving mindset. And this is, I cannot explain, the importance of this. Science topics need to be taught with real-life applications, because only then it will trigger the mindset of children. We need to engage their mindset. We need to engage or trigger their curiosity. But they need to keep asking this question, why? So don't ask your child, what do you want to be when you grow up? Instead, ask your child, what is the problem that you want to solve? Because when you keep asking that question, it will change the child's mindset to think differently. And that is very important. And we mothers, we have a huge role in doing this. So don't ask your children about, about the marks they get. Ask them, what is the problem that you want to solve, because it will trigger curiosity, and most importantly, it will make them think differently. They will start looking around for problems to solve. And that is the kind of mindset we want to inculcate in our children. Now let's understand how, as parents, do we inculcate an entrepreneurial mindset. So there are so many, ways to do this. Okay, simple ways. When you buy games which trigger curiosity. Buy games like, for example, Monopoly. It teaches children about assets, liabilities, cash. Or all of us, as parents, we give pocket money to our kids. So what do? We can open a fun account. We can open a savings account. The fun account is, you take the money and you can have fun with it. Savings account, it needs to go into investment. So we teach our children about savings, investment. And then, you can ask your kids to, pick up old things in the house and sell it on eBay. So they will understand the importance of, buying and selling and margins. Or maybe if you're taking your family to a restaurant, what are the kind of conversations you need to have? What kind of questions you need to ask? You can talk about the restaurant. You can talk about good customer service. You have a smiling employee. That's good customer service. You've got a grumpy employee. That's bad customer service. Or you can talk about the bill. Okay, how did we arrive at this figure? What is the profit margin? What is the cost? How did this hamburger come here? What is the process it went through for this hamburger to come here? Why is the price of this hamburger here? It's 400 rupees, but why is the price 800 rupees in a 5-star hotel? So these are the kind of questions that we need to ask our children so it triggers curiosity. And there are so many ways as parents we can inculcate an entrepreneurial mindset in our children. And what is this mindset? It is a resilient problem-solving mindset. And we all are aware the relevance of that mindset in today's environment. Teach kids not what to think, but how to think. Success is not about putting money in your bank account. It is about how you have impacted the lives of people around you in a positive way. So that is the message that needs to go to your children. And most importantly, over and above all else, instill self-confidence so they can thrive in an uncertain environment. Now, this is just, some ways we can inculcate an entrepreneurial mindset in children. Now let's understand, about how do we promote entrepreneurship among women. Now, why do I talk about women? Let's face it, we are 51% of the population. And nobody can ignore 51%. In Kerala, it is 51%. I was corrected. I kept saying 50%, and somebody corrected and said, no, it's 51%. So we cannot ignore 51% of the population. So how do we promote entrepreneurship among women? What do we need to do? Now let's first understand that a little change or a little bit of improving entrepreneurship among women is going to boost economic growth. Okay, it will increase the GDP. It will change the mindset of the family. And it will be a growth mindset. Okay, now let's understand, why do women not enter into this field of entrepreneurship? So there are multiple reasons. Yes, lack of capital. Even though women have proved themselves, why do banks and investors refrain from investing in, startups that are completely owned by women? Or lack of support from family or from mentors. And there is also this aspect of personal and professional life balance. Let's face it, we live in a patriarchal society, okay? And this patriarchal society was formed over hundreds of years. It's not going to change very fast. It's not going to change over decades. But yes, there is a lot of positives that are happening around. So in this world of patriarchy, there is this unsaid rule that the responsibility, the 100% responsibility of the home and the children is the woman's. And that has already been, set in, and it's like a social conditioning that's already in. But what happens is, so we tell her, in your free time you can go do whatever you want. So in the midst of going through all the stress of taking care of the family and the children, she has to also attend business conferences to create relationships. So it's not easy. Everybody likes to call woman, she's a multitasker, she's a superwoman. No, she's not. She's not a superwoman. It's not about multitasking. It's not about adding on stress to her and making her life so difficult. It's not about that. It's about sharing responsibilities in the home, where the family share the responsibility because she's got her interests, she is passionate, she's got skill sets, and she wants to initiate something on her own, and she wants to be financially independent where she does not have to depend on anybody for income. And another aspect is she goes through immense stress and guilt. All women do. As a mother, I go through a lot of guilt because every time I'm doing my business, I'm wondering, I'm not spending enough time with my son. So that is that guilt. And along with that, I still have to run my business. So it's not easy. And let me again state, we are not superwomen. Lack of confidence. This is another aspect. Somehow women struggle with self-confidence. They need to understand, or they need to be aware of their skill sets and their value. Women always underestimate their capabilities. So these are areas where, women need to, we need help and we need support, and especially we need support from families. But I can assure you, if you promote entrepreneurship among women, it will not only increase economic growth, okay? It will also, it's like a major ripple impact. Because when a woman starts a business, what she does is she employs other women. And then she becomes an inspiration to other women to start businesses. So it's like a ripple effect that happens. And it's a transformative change to everybody around her. Now let's talk about inculcating an entrepreneurial mindset in organizational teams. The question of how do we create an innovation culture? The only way to create an innovation culture among teams is to have a culture of experimentation. That means you have to allow your team members to experiment new methods, new processes, new products, new services. They have to experiment new methods of doing. Only then that culture of experimentation will set in, and only that will lead to innovation. And only if you innovate, you will thrive. Otherwise, you will die. So that is very clear in the world order today. Another aspect which we need to remember is, especially team members in organizations, if you do the same action, you get the same result. But if you change your action, you get a new result. I'm not saying you get a better result, you get a new result. But the point is, you need to keep changing action, you need to keep changing processes, you need to come up with new methods of doing all the time. And that is the only way you can be dynamic, and you can be innovative, and you can, thrive in today's environment. Every department in an organization needs to be considered like a profit center. So even if you're an organization, how do we inculcate an entrepreneurial mindset in the team members of every department? So if you consider every department to be a profit center by itself, what happens is that entrepreneurial mindset will automatically set in. I once had a finance manager who said, "Ma'am, my job is to give you the balance sheet and profit and loss account every 30 days. That's my number one responsibility." And I said, "No. Your number one responsibility is to come out with ways and means of reducing cost for the company. You need to contribute towards the bottom line. My job is not just providing the service of giving you a balance sheet and profit and loss account. The finance manager's job is to contribute to the bottom line of the company. So how does he do it? By reducing costs. So he needs to study the previous figures, and he has to come up with ways and means of reducing costs. So you give him a target, bring down 10% cost. So that is how he's able to contribute. So every department in an organization needs to be considered or looked at as a profit center by itself. Now let me talk a little bit about management, or our youngsters today, because we are talking about the new world order. I asked my son, I said, okay, now you finished, he's done his filmmaking program. So I said, maybe now you should apply to OTT platforms, apply to Netflix, apply. So he looked at me and said, "No, I don't want to do that." Then I asked, "What do you want to do?" "I want short-term projects. Every 3 months, I want a new project. Then I want a break in between, and I want to relax during that break. And then I will take the next project." So I said, "Where do you want to live?" "Oh, I can't say that. I'll be in Mumbai, maybe after 3 months I'll be in Bangalore. So look at the mindset of the youngsters. It's different. It's not like how we thought. Today's youngsters, okay, their mindset is totally different, and the managers need to understand that mindset and need to adapt accordingly. Today's youngsters, they want flexible hours. Many want to work from home. They don't want too much of stress. They want short-term projects. They want interesting job. You know, I don't know how we are able to continuously entertain them and give them more and more interesting jobs. They want short-term gigs. They're looking for positive experiences all the time. They want, you know, they want quality of life. They don't want to be stuck in a single company or in a single location for a very long time. So this is what it is. This is what our younger generation want. So how do we as managers tune into that? Or how do we adapt and how do we change to, you know, to ensure that, you know, the youngsters who join our companies, how do we retain them? The fact is, change is the only constant. The world around us is changing. Multiple disruptions are happening simultaneously all the time. The biggest challenge I see among managers is that they have not been trained for managerial skill sets. And it's important in organizations to send your managers to conferences, because what these conferences do is when you listen to talks, it triggers your mindset to think differently. It comes up with new ideas, new methods and processes of doing things. So let me, you know, conclude by saying entrepreneurs are problem solvers and solution makers. And only we can choose to make the world a better place. Only we can solve world problems. So with this, I'd like to conclude and thank you for your time and patient listening. God bless you all.
Thank you, madam. That was fantastic. In a go, we listened to a mother, an entrepreneur, and a proven leader. The highlight of that was ensuring that the young generation find the larger purpose by looking at the why deeply. So thanks a lot on behalf of CMM for that wonderful insights on an apt topic of the day. We move on. It's time for pleasantries. Now may I request Dr. Reena Anil Kumar, Vice President of CMA, to hand over the memento to our guest of honor, Aruna Sundaraj. It was great pleasure having you, madam, and we got some great insights on the leaps India is taking in the front of IT. Now may I request CA Ranjini Umesh, Treasurer of Calicut Management Association, to hand over a pleasantry to Anisha CHERIYAN for that wonderful delivery. So I request our Treasurer, thank you, madam, for being with us. It was really enlightening to listen from you. Thank you, madam. Now we are moving on to the last item of the agenda. Before let me remind you, tomorrow we will be having a series of speakers in the same venue. So request you all to be present here. We will be having thought-provoking sessions the same as the way we witnessed today. Now may I request Advocate Pradeep Kumar, convener of Annual Management Convention. Yeah, we have, may I request the founder president of VKS Menon.
I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, we have our past presidents with us, and it is a time to honor all the past presidents on behalf of Calicut Management Association, as we are entering the Silver Jubilees year. So I request the present President Anandamani, please receive all the past presidents to the stage, and with a great honor, we request all the past presidents including Colonel Chandrasekhar, Professor Philip Anthony, Sri James, Advocate Dinesh, and Chartered Accountant Sadish. Please come.
ഇത് എനിക്ക് തന്നെയുള്ളൊരു സമ്മാനമാണെന്ന് ഞാൻ അറിഞ്ഞില്ല, എന്നാൽ ഞാനത് വിളിക്കുമായിരുന്നു.
This is one of
I was
the
skipping for the vote of thanks.
rarest opportunity a person like me can have. I'll come over to you, sir. 25 years earlier, these gentlemen in varying years had honored, made the foundation for Calicut Management Association. It's a proud privilege to have you all here today, and as a token of appreciation of love, we are extremely happy to honor you, sir. Casey has all the way flown down from US, just came today, one day earlier to attend this convention.
Just remain here. After the photos, they can just remain. Okay. Combat theater
Casey, please come.